Today I'm going to be making a little piece of piano music using Midicake ARP, and I'm going to be utilising a lot of the new features from the V8 firmware update, as many as I can. I'm going to be starting from scratch with a blank patch and also a blank Ableton song so that I can show how I kind of piece it together and build it up step by step, and hopefully we'll make something nice. Let's get on with it. Okay, so let's start. Here I have Ableton and here I have ARP, and I've got ARP set up as a blank patch. I literally went into reset and I cleared each of the patches, each of the tracks. So I'm going to come to track 1 to begin with. I'm going to go into set mode and I'm going to set the MIDI channel to 1. I want that to output on 1. And while we're here, I'm going to set up all 4 tracks. And I'm going to output them on different tracks. Channels 1, 2, 3 and 4. So track 1, channel 1, 2, 3, 4. Easy. I'm just going to do one track at a time, so let's mute those other tracks. And I'm just looking at track 1. So in Ableton then, what I want to do is I want to select the MIDI input to be from Midicake ARP. So let's just go into configure and just show you how I've got this set up. So I've just got input is set to track on, which will take notes. Sync is for clock and remote is for CC messages. But really we're only interested in track at the moment. So then as a MIDI ins, I'm going to select Midicake ARP and I'm going to take channel 1. So now if you hit play, you'll see channel 1 is highlighting, and if we enable it, we should get some MIDI data coming through. So now we need something to play. So if I come into my plugins, I've got some, let's put a Kontakt instrument because I want to make some piano music. So let's clear off my default. Let's have a look. I have this Grandeur instrument, which is just a nice piano. And if we hit play, we get some sound. Excellent. I'll sort out the sound in a minute. But for now, we know we've got input. What I want to do with this first track is to have it playing as a pad, because I want to create a chord sequence in a minute, and I want that pad to play out on every chord. So that was my plan. This is the idea I had in my head, so let's go for it. So I come into mode, bypass chord into pad mode. So now if I hit play, it'll just play until I change chord. So to actually be able to hear anything going on, what we need is a couple of chords. So I'll come into chain, into the chord chain, just hit program in play mode. And I'm going to have a C chord and let's go for a G chord. Let's have an F and an A minor. Let's go with that. Hit play and I should have a bar of each chord. So now we've got something going on. I can do something a bit more interesting with that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the number of steps so that I have a full chord playing. Okay, that's good. I'm going to leave it like that for now, because that's kind of the base. So what I'm going to do now is create another track, a second track, and I'm going to come to track 2. Let's just mute track 1. But I'm going to use the same instrument. My idea is to kind of have one piano on the left-hand side and one piano on the right-hand side, and the two doing two different but similar sort of things. So what I'm going to do is in Kontakt, I'm literally just going to duplicate that channel. Sorry, that channel. And I'm going to change it to MIDI channel 2 so that if you remember, track 2, output in MIDI channel 2, and I'll just enable that. So now we'll see what we get. Yeah, we've got sound. And what I can do with this is just start experimenting, really. Let's start with setting the number of steps to something quite high up. Let's go with 8 for now, because I do want repeating patterns in this, because this is this left-hand side, tracks 1 and 2 is our bass, kind of the ground for the piece of music. So I want that to just keep repeating. I'm going to set the direction to something different, like maybe just up and down. And with that chord chain going on, we already have something reasonably musical. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to just swing it a little bit. So I'm going to come into delay, and I'm going to put the pattern as the first one is not delayed and the second one is delayed, so I get a bit of swing. And with that in place, I can start to create a little bit of swing, but I only want a tiny little bit, so I don't know. Let's go with that. I also want this to modulate a little bit. I want it to maybe rise kind of up the scale as it goes. So let's put a mod on, and I'm going to target, what am I going to target? Let's go with no offset, because I do want it to step up through the scale. And I want it to ramp up. This was my idea. And I'm going to go over a couple of bars. And then, so now as we apply that, we're going to get a variation. We've got this chord chain happening, so it's changing chords anyway. But we're going to get a variation from one set of 4 bars to the next set of 4 bars, thanks to that ramp up. And yeah, you know what? I think that's okay for now. We'll go with that. So the two things together. That's fine for now. What I'm going to do though is I'm just going to set this to being on the left. So I'm shuffling these two pianos. It's the same piano. I want it to be the same piano, kind of like a left and right hand. But I'm going to shuffle them onto the left hand side so that we can work on the next 2 piano tracks on the right hand side and just get a bit of separation. So I want to do that now. That's how I pictured it in my head anyway. And I also want to just, because people say you shouldn't master from the beginning, but I want to bring the overall level of the mix up, and sort of fill it out really. And so this is the common trick that I use, which is just to put a mix gel compressor on, which is just a preset in Ableton. But then I can push that up. So without, it just raises it just a little bit. And I've also then got a kind of too much, but that's a control over the overall volume. But what I don't want to do, so what I generally do, what I don't want to do is clip. So I just put an upper ceiling on. And when you've got lots of instruments and quite a lot of dynamics, it just makes sense. So just limit it to a kind of upper level, so it doesn't overload. And I have to say, this little limiter's fantastic for that. Just to show you that in action, there's nothing happening now, but as we push it up, it'll start to bring it in. Compared to that kind of noisy distortion that we had before. So it's a bit of a safety net, if nothing else. Okay, so that was the 2 pianos on the left, but I think what I might do is just, because this is bass, I wanted it to come down a bit, so I'm going to bring this down an octave. I think that's too low. we can play around with that later. I might just set the gate a little bit longer on them both as well. Sorry, I've just broken my chain. I'm going to set them both a little bit longer. Yeah, I did. I came out of my chain, didn't I? Let me put the chain back on. Okay, that's, yeah, it's nice and rounded to begin with. So let's go for the next two tracks then. So let's come to track 3. And what I want with this track 3 is a something a little bit more staccato and up the octave range. So something quite high frequency to complement what we've got on the left hand side. So to begin, I'm going to put the, I'll tell you what we better had to do is actually line it up. So remember, track 3, MIDI channel 3, and I want to input from Midicake ARP, and I want channel 3, and I better arm that so it plays something. So we've got something, but we've got no instrument yet. So let's put an instrument on there. Let's go to plugins. Again, I want another piano, but I'm going to use something a little bit different this time. I've got quite this noir piano. Which one? Let's go for this one. Let's get rid of that original piano. And then in here, I'm gonna, well, let's, it's a little bit more darker, shall we say, quieter, lower, a little bit more subdued. But because I'm going to push it up the octave range, it should cut through without being kind of too aggressive, I'm thinking. There's a couple of presets on here, so let's flick through and have a look. Quite like that one. That's too much. It's not what I had in mind. Let's go back to that compressed. So you see the original. Yeah, like that. Okay, so now what are we going to do with this? Well, let's just play around with steps and see what happens. So we've got, I want it to be quite conventional because I'm playing with chords, so I'm gonna stay in 4s. I'm going to set my time division to something a bit slower. But what I'm going to do here now is I'm actually going to move this to a chord. Yeah, so that should complement the other. Let's just move it to the right hand side to begin with so that it balances out. Quite jolly, but obviously that's the chord chain that I've got going on there. What else did we want to do on that? I think so I'd set this number of steps to 4. I think that I wanted it a little bit more staccato than that because I wanted it to cut through. Yeah, that's too gritty. Yeah, I think that's about right. And okay, so let's just modulate that to give it a bit of variation. Given that it's chords, we can only really play around with a number of steps, but we can also shift it around in terms of its. So we can do that kind of thing. So let's modulate that. I'm going to target steps on the first modulation. And I'm going to give it. I'm just going to stick with the basics. So 1 bar is probably enough. I'm just going to let it. So there, with those with those steps coming through, just over the course of a bar, it's kind of adding more, fewer notes, and it's creating like a little kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, like a dynamic movement, but it also accents because there's more notes and few notes. Okay, stop talking. And on the other, the second modulator, I'm going to target note offset, just to move it up and down a little bit. I had targeted steps on that one. I'm targeting note offset with this one. And I'm going to do this over, let's do this over a couple of bars so we get a variation of it just moving. And then as I apply that, so it's not going to move too far, but it's given us that variation. Okay, that first track I'm not happy with. I'm going to just change it up simply by modifying the velocity to kind of set some mutes and get a different rhythmic structure going on. So let's set our pattern length to 8, and let's set our don't know. Let's pick a pattern. See what that sounds like. Yes, that's better. It's not as obvious. Does that make sense? So compare. We can just we can try this out by setting the pattern length. But if we So it's a really good way to just create something more interesting and less obvious, like I say. Okay, let's move on. So in this last track, it needs to be something that complements this. So let's duplicate the track 3 to track 4, and let's set it to channel 4 and arm it, because track 4 is running MIDI channel 4, so that should just be our blank patch. And so with this, again, I want to push it up the octave range. So something that's comparable with that, maybe not too far. Yeah, and I want it to kind of shift a little bit. I do want it to be along something a bit slower, maybe. Let me just reduce the velocity on this first one a bit, because the two weren't really sitting together that nicely. Let's go with that. Let's play around with the steps. I mean, it's nice, but it's a bit busy. Let's bring it down so it's running at the same level. Now, the two things are sort of tripping up over each other, so what we can do is just shift it back by pushing the delay. So we've got those chords, and then we've got a single note just kind of interweaving. Yeah, I mean, perhaps we can play around with the bounce. So I don't know. Let's have a look. We've got some different patterns here. It's quite pretty. Yeah. Let's go with that. Well, I want a little bit more variation because again, it's a bit. So let's use that velocity pattern again. I'm going to set the length up to 4 this time, and I'm going to set the pattern. Let's set it to. Yeah, I really. Yeah, let's go with the first 3 on and then the next one off. Let's go with that. I mean, we can ooh. I mean, it's quite gentle in it. It's nice. Yeah, I think that's okay. I don't want to modulate that any because it's consistent enough, I think. What I might do is just put a little bit of an embellishment on it. So we've got this ratchet function, but I don't want it all the time. So let's set the length up. Again, let's set the length to 4. And then only... Yeah, I'm okay with that. What does it sound like all together? I think the left and right are slightly out of... This octave is... Let's try and set the brightness up a little bit. I don't think that's far off. I think there's enough interest there. I mean, obviously, you could go all day on this. That's where the fun comes. So let's just do one more thing. It's a little bit flat in terms of the variation in the feel. It sounds programmed. And every, I don't know how many bars, it's going to repeat what it's doing. So let's create some variation in it. I'm going to select all the tracks. So you just select one, select all. And then I'm going to come to effects and we're going to apply a little bit of humanization by targeting velocity. So this is just the velocity and I'm going to mix it up. I just pick a seed at random and I'm going to run it over a large number of bars. It doesn't matter. Anything over 16 and it's going to sound kind of random anyway. At least to the human ear. So then as we what am I targeting here? I think I'm targeting something odd then. I've got to find that and fix it. Every time I change the amount, the pads re-trigger and that's what the problem is. It doesn't need that much. It's just a subtle humanization. Okay, this last thing sonically now then, the last thing is that I think I want to run the 2 right-hand tracks through... You know what, I'm not happy with that ratchet, so I'm going to just turn it off for now. We can always add it later. yeah, back to my point. Tracks 3 and 4, the right-hand side piano. I think I'm going to take it. I'm going to add some reverb on there, so I'm going to output both of those to the audio 5 track. And I'm going to delete audio 6 because I don't need it anymore. And so let's enable that, and let's find an instrument, my absolute favorite, Reverb. And I'm going to apply, I'm going to apply a little bit of reverb. So let's play with. Just going to turn that on, and we're not getting any output because I'm not monitoring, so I need to turn monitor on. So without monitor and with, we don't need a lot. Okay, I think we've got the basis of the behaviours. So what I've done is track 1 through to 2 is playing a piano on the left, track 3 and 4 playing a piano on the right, and I've set how they are behaving given the input. So I could play this with a piano now, or I could explore different chords with ARP. So let's go and see what this sounds like. Let me come into the menu and set live play on. Turn that on, so now we can try different chords. We could even try experimenting with some custom chords. But to cut this shorter, I've already got in my head an idea for a chord progression, which I shall run through now. So we'll begin in chord chain. Let's come into chord chain and let's, we can clear this chord chain out. Just go back to the beginning and hold reset until it clears the chords. And I've got a sort of F, A minor, G, D minor kind of thing in my head. I was messing with a couple of days ago, and so I'm gonna go through and show you how to set this up. So I'm gonna start with an F major. No, that's not right, is it? It's a major. There we go. And I'm going to set it to. I can set its position and its length, and I'm going to set the length to 1/4 of a bar, and then I'm going to add another F, but this one I'm going to set to position 1 and 1/4 of a bar, because I want this kind of effect. I want it to play so essentially every fourth beat it's going to re-trigger before it triggers again on the next bar. That was the pattern I had in my head. So let's carry on building up this chain. Next I want an A minor, but I want to play that a position down, and again I'm going to do my 1/4 bar. A position down, I want to go position down. And then I'm going to do the same again, but this one is only going to be 1/4 bar. Whoop. And the position I'm going to set to 0 so it triggers. Okay, and I'm going to carry on in that manner, and I'm just going to add some more chords. Okay, so I have my chord chain set up. Let's hear what it sounds like. So there you go. I'm not going to take it any further than that. Obviously I would copy this patch now, create a variation, create different chains simply by copying the chains. Explore doing some kind of live performance stuff where I move in and out between the chord chains and live play, maybe introduce a keyboard to explore more of what I could do with it. So yeah, I just wanted to show how you get from literally nothing to a piece of piano music that hopefully isn't too terrible. Enjoy!